let's make the case here for Nebraska. I mean, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts for Nebraska this year winning this game?
I think, and this is, like I said, this isn't a hot take. Like I said, I am a Nebraska fan, as we've stated a million times. I think Nebraska wins this. It is at home. I know home doesn't mean much in our Memorial Stadium as of late, but I think with the players that we are returning on offense, right? I truly, truly believe here at home, with Casey Thompson coming back another year under the belt as the Nebraska quarterback, that's not a clear-cut thing yet. You know, everybody's going to bring up Jeff Sims, and he's a hell of an athlete, I believe, from Georgia Tech coming over. But, like, with Grant, A.J. Allen coming back off the injury at running back, we got Washington back. We got a few other guys on offense that are coming back and returning. I believe against Iowa's defense, who I do think Iowa's defense is going to be fucking crazy good again. They seem to be that way always in the top 3 or 4, it seems like, in the Big Ten every year. But I think we can compete on that level, right? And this is where I think the breaking point and why I would take Nebraska over Iowa is quarterback play. And I know everybody loves Cade McNamara coming over here, and he is a hell of an upgrade to what they had the last couple of years there. But it's a new system. They've lost some people over there. The opposite end of that question is Nebraska's defense going to be better, which you just brought up earlier, right? Has to be. Nebraska's defense last year was pretty piss poor for most of the year, which is kind of ironic because the year before they were basically like Iowa. They were on the field the whole entire game. So, and they were great that year. I honestly believe, though, that Nebraska is going to get the dub this year. We're going to change the trajectory. Does that mean that Nebraska gets into the Big Ten title game? I think it might come down to these two teams at the very end of the year around Thanksgiving, but I do think we get this one. I would like to hear from a true Iowa fan like yourself. What's your rebuttal here?
Well, first of all, let's just go ahead and say this. I mean, look,
you gonna prove me wrong here with all your stats and your info?
Look, I'll be fair. I'll be fair with you. I'm going to wing this here. My stats only go one way here. Here's the reality of the situation. You say true, right? I do work in Iowa, so I have to defend the Iowans. Okay, here. This is the battle of I-80 right here, because I-80, if you don't know this, runs right through the heart of Nebraska and Iowa. Also, the majority of the U.S. as well. But that doesn't matter, because this is the heart of the U.S. right here, okay? Fuck. Listen.
I'm listening.
I've called, and what's had me so busy over here, Chris, is I've called several retirement homes and tried to put out a lot of fires since your ass escaped and broke curfew to be on this podcast, okay? Jesus.
Yeah, I'm a tough son of a bitch to catch, bro.
Let's take a look at it. This is why I'm so high on him. I mean, you look at what this is a projected roster here for what Nebraska is going to look like. Okay, yep. They're going to bring back some really good talent here. You get Marcus Washington who transferred in last year from Texas. Yep. So you've got Alante Brown, been there forever. Billy Kemp, he transferred. I think, where did he transfer in from? Virginia Tech, if I'm not mistaken.
Like that. I don't know much about that kid, but the Washington kid is coming back. He is from Texas. He has a correlation with Casey Thompson, though, from Texas. So he was our number 2 basically last year, behind obviously Trey Palmer. So.
Here's where I'm going to kind of differ from you a little bit. They've got Casey Thompson, they got Anthony Grant, they got a really good run game. I like that. You bring in Eric Gilbert. Whoever put this list together, by the way, this guy was the number 1 tight end in the country. He transferred in from Georgia. I mean, don't get me wrong. If his head's locked into it, one of the best tight ends in America. So there's no way in hell he is a third string tight end. I'll just tell you that right now. Obviously Trey Palmer, all these guys are gone. We know that they're out of there, but this is right here. This is the question mark that you there's some names that have been around forever. This kid Newley, if I'm not mistaken, I think he popped one of their guys here. I think popped for oh Lord, what am I trying to say? PEDs last year.
Yeah. Yep.
And, couldn't play. All of these guys Benhart, Corcoran, Prohaska, they've been in this program forever. I mean, they just have been around forever. So they should with experience be pretty good, but the question is can you get them to do what they're supposed to do and really hold up in pass protection? Now, last year, Nebraska's offense, to me, wasn't really the problem, right? The problem was on defense. Now, they go out and they get MJ Sherman, an edge rusher. Look, O'Shawn Mathis last year for you guys was supposed to be the big swinging guy, right? How much of an impact did he have?
Not much at all. That and Nelson.
Now, MJ Sherman, in my opinion, is a different fucking player. I mean, he's another Georgia guy he's going to get down. You get Elijah Judy out there. You get Ty Robinson. I mean, this guy was very, from what I saw last year, he got washed off way too many damn plays up the middle.
Yeah, too big to get washed off too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Nash, Hutchmacher, Blaze Gunnerson. I mean, these guys up here have got to lay the fundamentals right here, right? One thing I do like that you guys get back is you do return a ton in the secondary, which is good. You get some experience back there. But these two players right here, Reimer and Heinrich, I believe they're both coming back, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep, Luke's a stud, man.
Yeah, so they're both coming back. That's going to be pretty huge for you guys. But again, I can't really be too negative on Nebraska. I mean, that's the hard part of it because I did pick them. I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated this year. That is not even remotely close to what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I did pick them to win the Big Ten West this year. And I think when you look at what they're projected to have from a depth chart standpoint, if you give them a real offseason, they can be downright nasty this year. I mean, I think 8-4, 8-4 over there, I think is a solid record for them.
I'm sure you do when you heard it from the guy that originally gave it to you. But regardless, they do. Nebraska, you make a great point there, and I guess I didn't dawn on me right away, was the offensive line for Nebraska. It has been piss fucking poor for years. They can't establish the run game, man, and that's something that I really, the more and more I listen to Rule, and like I said, that's a lot of coach speak, and we can go off of that all day, right? Every coach wants to run the football, but we have to now. Scott wanted to do that too. It didn't fucking happen. I mean, we were horrible last year running the football. I do believe Anthony Grant is a fucking top tier running back in this league. I love that kid. AJ Allen, before he tore his ACL or whatever against Oklahoma, man, as a freshman, man, he looked great back there. We got backs. We got some receivers. We're probably not, I don't know. Some of those kids are newcomers, but like I know the Washington kid can play. He's got some correlation, like I said earlier, with Casey Thompson. So I think he'll be our number one this year. But can we move the football? Can we sustain some fucking drives and get some third downs? A lot of our third downs last year were the long 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. You know what I mean? It's hard to convert, man, especially in the Big Ten where it's more of a smash mouth, style of play. Defenses are always really good for the most part across the landscape of the Big Ten. Can we do that? God, I hope so. But I truly got to be able to run the football and get those third downs shorter, right? 3rd and 3, more convert, that we can convert on. So as far as that goes, man, defense is a big thing too. That was the biggest problem last year. The special teams was great compared to the year before. I just think with defense, though, we do return a lot of our second string, or not second string, sorry, but that second tier, of defense out there with the linebackers and the corners and the safeties. But yeah, the front four's got to generate some sort of fucking pass rush. If I'm not mistaken, last year, I don't have the stats pulled up here right now, but like, God, it was until that last game, I don't think we had but like 4 fucking sacks on the year. I mean, we were just not getting pressure. You're allowing any quarterback to stand back there, whether it's a fucking 1-star recruiter or a 5, they'll pick you apart if you give them all day. So that's the big question. The front line for Nebraska, both sides of the ball, I could have probably started it out with that, is going to be the determining factor, and it's going to be the determining factor in this game. I was known for big fucking offensive linemen, some great pass rushers. That's where we got to freaking match that. You know what I mean? For us, in order for us to win that game, we are going to have to establish the run, and we're going to have to be able to fucking get some sort of pass rush, some sort.
1,000%. I mean, look here, and I just had to make sure I'm doing this justice for the Iowa fans here. I can't just be all complimentary. Here's the reality of the situation. Nebraska last year ranked 102nd in as far as total yards given up in defense. Okay, so they were 100, pretty much they were ranked right at about in the hundredths. Okay, as far as defense was concerned last year. Iowa, by the way, ranked. I have to scroll all the way back up here, third. So
there you go.
I mean, that's just a situation where they have to figure it out. Let me ask you a question, and this has to play into it. This has to play into it, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on the coaching standpoint there? I mean, you and I both talked about that when we broke down Michigan, Ohio State. I mean, I think we can both agree right now Harbaugh is the better coach, and that, although Ohio State has the better talent, in that argument, you're pretty much saying, hey, the better coach always, not always, but more likely is favored to win. So would you or would you not agree that Ferentz is the better coach in this rivalry compared to Rule, even though he is a newcomer and he has he's had some good seasons at this level? What do you think?
Man, that is a really good question, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. Who do I think is a better coach? It's hard to say. It's hard to speculate right now, right? If we get up into that game and you give me that question again, I probably might change my answer. Kirk Ferentz right now has been there he's been there forever. He might have the longest tenure in college football right now, if I'm not mistaken with that stat. You should probably know that off the top of your head, Christian. But yeah, Matt Rule hasn't coached a college game in a few years. So I'm going to give the edge to the guy that's been there, and I'll give it to the guy in Iowa. He knows his program. He knows his kids. Kirk has kind of probably been on the hot seat maybe a little bit. I've heard a lot of rumblings. Iowa fans are getting tired of being complacent. He needs to evolve with today's passing game a little bit more, right? But I'm going to give the edge right now to them on that. And that's where this game, it does come down to, like I said, I really, truly believe, and I'm not saying Matt Rule can't do it. I'm not saying we've seen first-year coaches come in and freaking kick ass their first year. That's happened. But the good thing about this game is the last game of the season, regular season. So like Nebraska might be a different team than what we see from the beginning of the season, kind of like last year, right? Iowa, they flip-flop kind of. Like I said, knocking them out of the Big Ten, championship game was huge for Nebraska fans, right? So, but to answer your question, they probably got the better coach. I still see Nebraska, though. I don't think like Kirk Ferentz is like an upper echelon of coaches anymore. I used to kind of think that he was, but the game has changed in college football, Christian. You know this. Matt Rule could easily be the better coach by then, but like I said, he just hadn't coached any games here, so we don't know, and that's a question mark.
Yeah, you know what it kind of reminds me of a little bit too. I grew up, like I said, a Georgia fan, and for years Georgia was always that perennial 8-9 win team. They were always competing for a chance to play in the SEC championship game, make it to the dance, but not really do much there, right? I mean, they just from that standpoint, they were consistent, but they were always just like how Iowa is right now. They're an old school football team. Run the ball down your throat. Don't do anything sexy. Set up the play action game. They're not built to play from behind. They're really built to sort of control the clock and sort of get after you and play a really tight football game. And they've won a lot of games and had a lot of success at doing that. But as college football's evolved over the years, you have to be able to evolve with it. Let me give you an analogy, and this is kind of where I think most Iowa fans can kind of relate to it, and most people I think can relate to this. It's kind of like working for a company for 20 years, and you come in, and the starting minimum wage is $7 an hour. Okay, we're throwing this way back here, not that far back, right?
I do remember those days, though.
Right? I mean, back when you started, people were getting paid a nickel for an hour worth of their time, right? That's why
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A nickel a dime, you don't fuck on company time, right? I mean, that was an old saying for you.
You said it perfectly, bro. It's been millennials ago, but yes.
But then you fast forward to 20 years later, you're making like $8 an hour, but entry level pay is like $16 an hour. Right. And that's, to me, where the college football landscape is at. You have to be able to evolve on offense and have some offensive flow to it. I mean, you really do in order to be relevant in today's game.
Yep. And I'll add on to your your topic there is where like I think great coaches evolve, right? Nick Saban, to me, who I don't like as a person, and I could go down that route. I've said that like it was on the first podcast about him, but like, dude, that guy, when he came to Alabama, all he did was run the football. I mean, they had no names of basically quarterback. run the football with Derrick Henry, run the football with Mark Ingram, right? And they won those games over LSU, and all that, right? Couldn't throw the ball really, basically kind of an Iowa, old school Nebraska type of mentality, right? Back in the 90s with Nebraska. Shit, now I get Tua. Now I got Jalen Hurts. Now I get Bryce Young. Now he's got, every year he's putting out fucking wide receivers. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, Jamison Williams, John Mechie, all those guys, right? He learned to just sling the ball. That's all they do now is sling the ball all over the place. Not that they still don't have good running backs like Brian Robinson Jr. and guys like that, but he learned to evolve with today's game, kind of what Ohio State's been doing, right? The game has changed, and it's changed in the SEC even, which is kind of crazy to me because that's always been kind of a tough nose, smash mouth, great fucking athletes at every position. That's where I think kind of Kirk is maybe, I don't want to say failed, man. A lot of Iowa people hate me because I know there's a lot of diehards for him. And then there's also people that are really like, hey, times have changed, bro. And I think he needs to maybe get up to speed with that because he's been there for so goddamn long. And he really hasn't changed his style. I'm not saying you still got to run the football. We know that. But I mean, look at last year's offense, dude. I mean, that was atrocious. That's probably one of the worst offenses, if not the worst offenses I had seen in college football in my lifetime.